tonight, so I will be interacting with you all and with you. We are going to be, we've passed around file cards. Please jot down your questions. We'll have people bring them up, and then I will ask Mark who you want the question assigned to. But just to get the ball rolling, is my mic working?
It is now.
It is now. Okay.
Marsha, come get Dan.
Okay.
Come down.
Our group is also part of the OREA, the Ohio Real Estate Investors Association, and we are very honored tonight to have our legislative director here. So Dan Acton. Dan, will you please come down?
It's glad to see some of you folks here. I see some familiar faces along the podium. My outpost office in Columbus, I run into Representative Butler and Morales quite often. So, Carl Keith, our auditor, is no stranger to you folks. Doug Berry. Thanks for coming out tonight. The rest of the candidates, good luck with everything. Look forward to hearing what you guys have to say. But, anything we can do for you from the Ohio Real Estate Investors Association, I concentrate on statewide efforts. Sean Reddy and Marsha both and Timothy are excellent about getting with me on local issues. Happy to work with you on them. So anything I can do for you, please reach back out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Dan goes to bat for us on state issues, and he is very good at it. Close your ears, guys. We have found that it's easier to have our input as they're talking about the legislation than instead of trying to change it after it's already been passed. And we have been very honored for them to come to us and say, what do you think about this? What do you feel about this? One time a couple of years ago, I was blown away when they said, could you write this resolution for us? And I'm like, write the resolution? You know, and because they had enough confidence in what we are doing. But getting back to you all, there has introductions. Okay. Carl, I'm going to start with you. What we'd like you to do is do a 2 minutes, each of you, a 2 minute, what do you want our people to know about you and what you're standing for?
Okay. Well, good evening. Am I on?
Yes, you are, Jeff.
I'm on. Good evening. My name is Carl Keith. I am the Montgomery County Auditor. It's nice to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Happy to participate. I have, this year I celebrated my 35th year of service in local government. Most of that time has been in the auditor's office. I started working in the auditor's office as the chief deputy in 1991 and have been the county auditor since 2000. So I've made a career out of public service and working in local government. Held a number of leadership positions in the County Auditors Association. Been named Ohio's outstanding county auditor at one point. Was president of the association at one point. But I have the auditors. I enjoy being the auditor because I have a wide range of responsibilities. We prepare financial statements for a $2 billion organization, and we also sell dog licenses and check gas pumps. So a wide range of responsibilities, but probably the responsibility that impacts your organization, your folks more than anything else is my role as the county's chief assessor and determining values for real estate for taxing purposes. And I know I have been to, on a number of occasions, been to your meetings and been to your programs and made presentations about the process and about some of the results. And I think we always have a great interaction and give and take with some questions and answers. And so I appreciate those opportunities as well. That's an important part, I think, of my job, is to be open and transparent and to include and engage people in that process. And I enjoy doing that and intend to do that in the future as your county auditor, and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jim Butler. I'm the state representative for the 41st House District, which is Kettering, Centerville, Oakwood, the southern two-thirds of Riverside, and East Dayton. I've been a state representative since 2011, and a little bit about me. I grew up in Washington Courthouse, just down the road. I went to the Naval Academy, and I saw walking in the Air Force Academy. That's what I was about to say. Not the right service, but finally getting together, class of '59, which is pretty awesome that they're doing it here. So I went to the Naval Academy. When I got out of the Navy, I went to law school. I'm a business litigator at Thompson Hine. And in that capacity, before I became a state representative, that I did tax appeals. So actually, got a chance to know Carl and interact with him. He's already a very civil gentleman in all of our dealings, but I represent the property owners. But once I became a state representative, then I'm not allowed to do that anymore, so I don't do that. But I fight for property owners and small business people, which you are. So that is, and we'll get into more details later. But that's what I'm about. Really promoting that. The probably thing I'm most grateful for is my wife just celebrated her 20th wedding anniversary, and my 3 daughters. So thanks.
Well, good evening. I'm Rick Perales. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank the association for putting this on. A little bit about me. I ended my military career. I'm a veteran, Air Force, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as the Civil Engineer Squadron Commander. So I know Wright-Patterson extremely well. I went from there to UD, where I did pretty much the same thing. I was the Executive Director of Facilities Management at the University of Dayton for about a decade throughout their transformation of that whole area. I'm very proud of that. I went to Beaver Creek, in parallel, while I was at UD, I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals at Beaver Creek. That was how I stepped into government. And then I ran and I became the mayor for a couple years here. Well, we're in Fairborn, I gotta remember. Across the street in Beaver Creek. And I served for 2 years there and another year on council. 2 terms as a Greene County Commissioner, that's 8 years, and I'm in my 6th year at the State House now, and I enjoy it greatly. I'm married to Becca, my best friend. She's been with me the whole time, and she's like my kindergarten mother, and she tells me when I do something right or wrong, but she's not here today, but we will tape it and we'll send it to her, so I'll still get my scoring from it. We have 4 kids, and we have 7 grandkids, and we just know we're blessed. You know, I go around a lot. I like meeting people, and everywhere I go, they ask, "Why are you doing this?" You know, life's not always good for politicians. Get that, especially recently. But here's the thing: it's about service. One word: service. I did it when I was in the military. I have 4 brothers who served. My dad served. It's in our DNA, and we love our country, and we're very patriotic, and we want to continue service. I'd like to just mention a few other things that kind of connects me and my past with this organization. At the University of Dayton, I was in charge of the land use plan, so I worked with you folks in developing Brown Street and NCR land into what it is today. As a mayor of Beaver Creek, I worked at the Greene Town Center, did a TIF there so that we could get that going. And I know Wright-Patterson, I know BRAC very well. I worked it, so I'm working towards that end on behalf of you folks. So I look forward to the questions tonight. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adil Bagirov, and I'm running for Montgomery County Recorder. I am a member of this association. I'm a fellow investor. I've been investing actually for the past decade. Always wanted to be involved in real estate ever since I've been reading those books from Carlton Sheets and Eli. And finally, when I got my opportunity, tried everything under the sun, from being a rehabber to short sales, REOs, you name it. Pretty much everything, I've done it, and I've done it in multiple states. Today I'm a realtor. I own several properties in Dayton. I was also on a school board as president of that school board. I own a couple other businesses in trucking and healthcare, so I'm pretty diversified and happen to have very rich experience in different sectors. However, what got me interested in Recorder is that it's about real estate, and it's also about technology. And both of those sectors are very interesting and very important to me. And I think there is a lot that I can do in those 2 particular fields. I'm married. I've got 2 daughters living in Montgomery County. So we're very blessed, very happy. because life wasn't always like that for us. As you can probably judge from my name, I'm an immigrant. I came to America at age 16. I came to study. I left behind my home state that actually doesn't even exist anymore. I was born in the Soviet Union, and as I was leaving to America, it basically broke up into 15 different pieces. So imagine you go to sleep one day in one country, you wake up, you're in a totally different country, and you're traveling with a passport from a country that doesn't exist. But that's exactly what has happened to me, even though it sounds like a Hollywood movie. So this is my life, and I intend to do a lot of good in this position. So I once again thank you for your attention and for coming here tonight to listen to all of us. So thanks a lot.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Teresa Gasper, and I am running for U.S. Congress in the Ohio 10th, which is all of Montgomery and all of Greene County, and a little bit of Fayette. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and be with all you guys as well. I am born and raised Dayton, Ohio, and I am the fourth of 5 generations to call South Park home at some point. And I am a small business owner. I'm married, my second marriage, we've been married 25 years. Between the two of us, we have 3 kids, his and hers, but no ours. The kids are all about to turn 35, 34, and 32 in the next week, and I'm only 24, so I don't know how that happened. My first grandchild is on the way, maybe sooner than later, but unfortunately in Houston. But at any rate, most of the last decade or so, I've been working in historic South Park. Again, a neighborhood that 4 or 5 generations have called home. For me, it was a philanthropic project. I went in and I bought the houses that were vacant and boarded up and abandoned, and anywhere else probably would have been torn down. But because it was a historic district, they could not. I buy the houses that you guys don't want to touch because there's no money to be made on them. And then I totally renovated them, and when the market crashed, we rented them for a while, and now we have sold all of them to homeowners. And I just sold the last one 3 weeks ago. We did 16 projects, including the house I grew up in and the last house that my grandmother lived in. And one of the things I learned very early on is that where you live matters. I didn't realize until we left South Park that my friends couldn't come over after school and on weekends because the neighborhood was considered too rough. And my mom ran Chuck Whalen's congressional office for 12 years, and she was not invited to be on community boards or nonprofit boards until we moved. And the only thing that changed was our address. So I feel very strongly about neighborhoods. I feel very strongly about the community. My heart is in the city of Dayton. I live in Beaver Creek. This whole region is home to me. And I feel like our current incumbent is spending too much time on Wright-Patterson to the detriment of the rest of the community. And that's something that needs to change because every kid in this community deserves a good neighborhood and it deserves a strong school. And I will fight hard for both of those.
Hi, my name is Ryan Rebecca Taylor, and I'm running for Ohio House District 40, Northern Montgomery County. I'm going to try this again. Thank you very much for having me today. Thank you for the new microphone. My name is Ryan Rebecca Taylor, and I am running for Ohio House of Representatives 40th District, Northern Montgomery County. So Phillipsburg, Union, Inglewood, Vandalia, Butler Township. I like this audience because I went through the streets and everybody was like, yes, I know exactly where this is. So from Vandalia in Beaver Heights, Riverside to Springfield Street, Dayton, 3rd and 5th Street to Keowee. Thank you very much for this community knowing exactly where that is, and I appreciate that. I am a local girl, homegrown. I've lived in Montgomery County and in my district for most of my life. I am currently raising the 4th generation in my home that I recently purchased from my grandfather. My first home was purchased in Inglewood, and I'm a graduate of Northmont High School. I teach right across the street and have been doing that since 2007. I teach in the Department of Human Services. So I teach undergraduate students how to work with others, people with developmental disabilities, mental health diagnoses, veterans, homeless populations. It's very empowering to work with students right now because we are moving the needle and we're moving forward. A little bit more about myself. My sister had a developmental disability, and I learned from a very young age how to advocate for her. I've grown professionally doing that in many different fields and arenas, from workers' compensation to working with group homes and developmental disabilities. Now, as a teacher, I am able to expand that and teach several hundred students a year how to do the same thing and work inside of our communities and in one of the 4,000 plus nonprofits in our region. As a state representative, I want to engage the community just like we're doing now and advocate for you in Columbus and deliver at home. So I appreciate this opportunity and thank you so much.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Helen Wallace.
Helen,
A little closer? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Helen Wallace. I'm running in Montgomery County, all of Montgomery County, for juvenile court judge. I have been an attorney for nearly 20 years. I graduated law school from GW in DC, and then I returned to Cincinnati, where I grew up from the age of 12 on. I worked for a civil litigation firm in Cincinnati, mainly Burke and Lipton, and at that time they were planning the Banks project down in Cincinnati, so it was very interesting. We did a lot of eminent domain work and that kind of thing. But in early 2002, I decided I wanted to see more trials. Doing civil litigation, you hardly ever see the inside of a courtroom. So I joined the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office, where I was first stationed in juvenile court in the delinquency section. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the people that worked in the court, fell in love with the children, and helping them through rough time, disciplining them, and correcting their path where necessary. But through the prosecutor's office, you go through a rotation. So as everybody else, I was rotated to grand jury, Judge Kessler's docket. I did adult felony, criminal trials for a couple of years. I was transferred to Care House. And while at Care House, which is a advocacy center and a multidisciplinary approach to children's sexual offenses or people offending against children, I had my second child. I have a 15-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. And I started my own business, started my private practice, because that way I could control my life. And I didn't have to have 7 jury trials while breastfeeding and also trying to take care of a very rambunctious 2.5-year-old. So I have successfully run my own law firm for 13 years. My office is in Washington Township. I have a thriving legal practice that deals with custody, both in juvenile court and in domestic relations court. When the seat opened up for juvenile court judge, when I heard Judge Hughes was retiring, I saw an opportunity to make a difference and to give back, as many people have said here today. I know I can make a difference as a mother, as a business owner, as a former prosecutor. I feel that I can make an impact on our community. As we all saw in that frontline show this past week, there's a lot of improvement that can be made in Dayton. Cutting down on delinquencies and crime is only going to benefit your organization and all of us. So together, I think if we partner and work together, we can all make a difference. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Good evening. My name is Doug Berry. Grew up in Huber Heights. We moved back to the Dayton area when I was in 3rd grade. My parents started a staffing company. And I still remember the day I was in 3rd grade and I was sitting on the couch. I remember telling my dad, I don't feel like going to school today. And he told me, get your butt up and get on the bus, because I'm going to work and I don't want to go to work either. If you start throwing up, I'll come get you. I didn't miss a day of school from that day to the day I graduated. I went to Ohio Northern University, came back after I graduated and started working in the family business. At 26 years old, my father passed away, and I had to take over the family business. And I have failed many times as a business owner at Berry staff. But what we've been smart enough to do is when we fail, we identify the failure, and then we fix it. And then as a business owner, I have to get my staff to overcome what the failure was. And we've built a pretty successful business, and I say we because I'm not the one that's built it, the staff has, under my leadership. I have a beautiful wife, Jessica. I have a senior and a freshman in high school. I've been a Miami Township trustee for a little bit over the last 4 years. And we have had a balanced budget through all the state cuts through the cut of the local government fund because we've done government different. We've done it through collaboration. And we have to get back to a point where we're collaborating with our local communities. And I feel the county government needs to take that lead. Helen alluded to the PBS piece. They painted a pretty dire picture of Dayton, Ohio, and Montgomery County. I don't see that picture. I see a lot of great things going on, not just in downtown Dayton, but throughout the county. But I'm concerned with the path that we're on, because we as a county government cannot continue to balance our budget on the backs of our taxpayers. With all the good that's going on, we can't continue to raise taxes, because that's going to drive people and businesses out of our county. We're going to grow as a county by being a destination place for businesses and for people to stay here and raise their families, just like my parents did with us. So my name is Doug Barry, running for Montgomery County Commissioner, and I appreciate your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Hello all. I'm Sumedh, and I'm here for State Representative Niraj Antani. Representative Antani is very sorry he is not able to be here himself, but he is serving as a surrogate for the DeWine campaign tonight at a DeWine Cordray debate at UD. Representative Antani has worked hard over the last 3.5 years to make Ohio more business friendly for all of your businesses. Friendly for all. He has fought for tax cuts and strongly opposed tax increases. Representative Antani voted for a bill that created 0% income tax on all LLCs and S-Corps on the first $250,000 of business income and a 3% flat tax on them. As well, Representative Antani has opposed over-regulations such as a bill that would have required you to remediate properties even if it was the fault of your tenant. Representative Antani strongly believes that a home is the cornerstone of the American dream, and the work all of you are doing is an important part of helping Ohioans achieve the American dream. Once again, Representative Antani apologizes he could not be here himself, but he wanted to offer his personal email address if anyone ever needs anything from him or his office. His email is niraj.antani@gmail.com. Thank you.
Don't forget that if anybody has any questions, got some file cards. Just write your question down and give it to somebody in a blue shirt, and we'll get going on it. But before we do that, I can ask questions. We've all heard about lead-based paint for years and years and years now. We all know it's a bad thing. But some of the cities have said, all you have to do is encapsulate it, i.e. paint it. Other cities are now coming back and saying, no, you can't encapsulate it, which is the state law right now. But they want it to be totally torn out, done away with, and new put back. What are your feelings about those newer regulations?
Sure. So you're probably aware of the situation going on in Toledo. It's really the lead offender, I guess, depending on your point of view, because they did pass a pretty draconian local ordinance on lead-based paint inspections, having to do with properties that were built before 1978, or I believe multi-occupant buildings. But that actually is something that we've already addressed, we tried to address. Representative Mayer has really taken the lead on this, and I fully support what he's done. And that is, in the budget, there was a provision that said that Ohio there'll be a single uniform regulation for these types of issues, so that you don't have every community having a different type of regulation, which makes it really difficult to do business. Imagine in our county, we have lots of different jurisdictions, and if you have property in multiple jurisdictions, even within the same county or multiple county or jurisdictions, then it'd be a nightmare to try to figure out what you should do or not do. And we really should have one standard regulation for the state whenever it comes in any type of health and safety situation. That was actually included in the budget. Fortunately, there was a lot of pressure that was put on the Senate, and the Senate ended up stripping out the version that we passed in the House that contained that provision. It's since gone forward in litigation. And I think that there's still an injunction currently on the local ordinance, but that's still being fought out at the moment. So Representative Barron introduced a separate bill, but because the Senate took it out in the budget, I think that the thought is that they're not going to pass it in this General Assembly. But pretty soon, there's what's called the lame duck session, which happens after an election. And it's generally bad because you have all these different bills flying all at the last minute because everyone wants to get a bill passed because bills expire at the end of every 2 years at the end of each General Assembly. So and there's very few session dates, so that that's something that could be included. There could be something done in the lame duck session, and I hope that happens. Certainly something I would support.
Did the Senate put anything back in place of what they took out?
So the Senate did put in some money for, it's actually for inspections to happen. It wasn't that much money though. It was about $300,000. So it really wasn't anything. There was a statewide study that was going to be done as to what the proper standard should be, but that was also stripped out in the conference committee.
Wow, for a lawyer, he knows a lot about civil engineering. Thank you, Jim. Pretty much what he said, I will just say, we need uniformity in the state. I've dealt with lead-based paint a lot in all my work in the past, and we need one agency, and that'll be the Department of Health, that will oversee everything, make sure that we have good standards, and then require everyone to meet those standards in conformance with state law.
Anybody else want to answer or contribute to that?
Got another microphone there
Chairman,
on your left.
Just my opinion is that I'm certainly for safety, but I think they need to do a comprehensive study of whether or not encapsulation of paint is enough or not. Because if it's not, certainly something needs to be done. But at the same time, cost of rehabbing would go up dramatically. And considering that we are in the epicenter of foreclosures from the last housing crisis, and we still have hundreds of properties that are foreclosed, that are without owners, and they're waiting to become someone's property, i.e. private investors, for the most part, will take the risk to actually rehab it and bring it up to the market standard before they sell it. It would make that business activity virtually impossible and therefore lead to even more deterioration and more problems. So that's why I would fully support a more comprehensive study to make sure that what we have in place is enough. And if it's not, then recommend certain steps on what needs to be done. But I don't think the unilateral way by any jurisdiction is the right way to do, precisely for the reasons that Representative Butler has mentioned.
I completely agree that we need a study so that we can demonstrate what would be fair and equitable and safe for all areas, including our children. And with that, then apply that information through the Ohio Building Code and move forward throughout the state. And take into account why Toledo chose to go that route and what needs to happen across Ohio. So gathering information and engaging the citizens in that area and around the state and looking at the research-based evidence of what needs to happen for the safety of our community and our children, and then applying that through the Ohio Building Code.
The next question actually, I believe, only applies to one of you, I believe. What is the biggest problem in the recorder's office, and how would you fix it? Not that we're going to put you on a hot seat or anything.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the Montgomery County Recorder's Office is really behind times when we compare it to other jurisdictions here in Ohio or anywhere else. In fact, right now we are in Greene County, and Greene County has much faster recording than we have in Montgomery County. Some of the other nearby counties have even faster and better and cheaper ways of reporting, and that's exactly what I would implement when I get elected to be the reporter. So that way, recording would go down of any type of document, from mortgages and satisfactions and liens to more complex documents, would go down from 2 to 3 weeks that it takes currently if you're sending something in by mail to hours, even minutes, really. And all of this can be done at essentially zero cost to the taxpayers. So I want to reiterate that zero cost to the taxpayers. But that requires someone who happens to know both of those industries, real estate and technology. Because if you only know one, but don't know the other, that becomes a little bit problematic, and you can make some wrong choices. And unfortunately, in Montgomery County, many wrong choices have been made in the past, especially when it comes to technology. So I know this because when I was on the board of Dayton Public Schools, we did implement the largest technology project in any organization in Montgomery County. We were able to unveil a massive upgrade to all the technology where 14,000 students, 1,000 teachers, got brand new computers, and all of that happened in 29 different buildings, where it was able to support all that capacity, and all of that came preloaded with all kinds of specialized software for different grades and different children to be able to measure, track, and individualize their learning, as well as teach them all kinds of new skills and prepare them for college and career. So if something like that can be done in just 1 year at a large organization like Dayton Schools, which employs 2,700 people and has a budget of $500 million combined budget, it certainly can be done in a recorder's office, which employs 20 people and has a budget of $1.5 million. So I hope I answered the question.
Okay, thank you. There is, I think there's stuff at the legislative right now in the House or the Senate, one of the two, I'm not too sure, about housing inspections and house inspectors. And do they need to be contractors? Do they need to be licensed to do like your home inspection before you buy a house? Or any, usually it's done before you buy a house, you do have a home inspection. Should those people be licensed, or not? Any thoughts?
That bill is it working? Nope. That bill is moving through the House, and as somebody that's been involved in construction, I think that people's biggest investment, the average person, is in their house. And there ought to be some kind of state authority that makes sure that the person, the party that's inspecting, knows what they're doing to some kind of minimum standards for that party. I think that's the least we can do. So I think there's some momentum with this to make sure that the people that are the inspectors and being hired by the folks that are buying houses, residents, in fact, know what they're doing to some kind of minimum standard.
Okay. I know for a fact, personally, I had a house inspected, and it was embarrassing, the report that I got from the inspector. And
Because they have no standards.
and he was just flat out wrong on some of the stuff. So,
And I'd like to add to that, when you add a certification and make that certification valid in Ohio, you have a degree of professionalism and continued education, so that as new standards come forward, those people that are certified in that field have regulations and are aware of the continued education, so that when they are giving you the report, they have accurate information that is up to date, and that's where we need to continue to move the profession.
okay, thank you. While we're talking about houses and inspections, what is your feeling about a pre-sale inspection on properties?
Let
Sounds
me,
like you.
I don't know that it's in my lane, but let me take the opportunity, since I have the mic again, take the opportunity, because I want to go home tonight. My wife is here with me tonight. I want to introduce my wife, Doris, which I failed to do so. And I do want to go home tonight, so thank you for that opportunity. I guess there's some issues in the city of Oakwood, right, going on about pre-sale, and I really don't want to comment. I mean, it's tied up in court litigation, isn't it? There's some constitutional issues involved here, and
It's not.
you're an attorney. You're an attorney, why don't you comment on this?
I'm just trying to save you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So, yeah, pre-sale inspections, the way that they're structured, that was ruled unconstitutional. Illegal inspections are kind of entry into your privacy, into your home, and I agree with that. I think that was the right decision by the court. And it's anyway burdensome. I know a lot of people in Oakwood, I live in Oakwood, complain about that, but that's up to the local government. But I think the Supreme Court made the right decision.
In addition to being an investor, I'm also a realtor, and I'm happy to say that Realtor PAC just lobbied through change with the city of Huber Heights. So the city of Huber Heights used to be one of 6 cities that had those pre-sale, or 5 cities that used to have those pre-sale inspections. They have agreed to remove that condition as of now. So this is, I think, a big victory. Reduces the number of those cities. I really don't understand how can a city infringe on the right of ownership of people. It's your real estate. You should be able to do what is within the federal, let's say, and state law. They shouldn't put those type of conditions on sale of your property. So I'm happy that this is being litigated, but I'm also happy that my Realtors PAC, to which I belong, has been able to advocate those issues on behalf of homeowners, as well as on behalf of investors, and score this small but yet tangible victory.
Okay, and just to tag on to that, I thought I read in the paper that Oakwood was changing their law, not doing away with it, so that it would now be legal. From a realty standpoint, is that happening?
So I'm not aware of Oakwood. I was only talking about Huber Heights,
Right.
because I think that's a very big victory. Oakwood certainly would be in a category of its own among all these cities for various reasons, but I'm sure that this would eventually resolve, and I'm pretty sure in favor of homeowners and investors.
No, I thought Huber Heights was exterior only. Oakwood is interior, and that's where the problem came up.
Sure.
And I thought they were changing their regulations so they would get a warrant to be able to enter the house.
That's true. That is true.
That's
That's what I read.
They changed it already.
That's what I read in the paper.
So shall we believe that or not?
I don't always believe everything I read.
But I thought they had just tweaked their regulation a little bit to put down that they would get a warrant to get into the property.
I'm sure that will also be litigated.
Okay.
I don't know for sure, but I would guess that will also be litigated, but probably by the various interested parties.
Absolutely.
Anybody have any questions? Now is your chance to grill these guys. Don't pass it up.
Tell us what you think too. Educate us. This isn't just on us. Be happy to hear any thoughts about, well, for us, state law.
Personally, and I don't know, some of you are from Dayton, I find Dayton very difficult to work with. Just all the hoops they jump through, and some of
The city.
the city of Dayton. There's a lot of people in our organization who will not buy in the city of Dayton or are getting out of the city of Dayton because of it. And part of it is because of the school board. I know you're not on it anymore, but part of it is the school board, or not school board, but the school district.
It's all right.
But the school system. But a lot of it is what we go through with the city as investors. And there's no continuity. You get a house inspector, a code enforcer, and I have a house next to me, the grass is this tall, has not been cut in 3 years. They're not doing anything about it. But other people who it goes over this hall, they get cited for it. Why? Why is that? Why is tall grass in one area not the same as tall grass in another area? So there's no continuity within code enforcement. And I know none of you are in that area, and I apologize, but that's one of the frustrations that investors see, and we're going, I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with this.
One of the things that we've seen down in Miami Township is we don't have a huge code enforcement department. Actually, we have one part-time guy. And we react when the public calls in. So when we have a property that is being neglected and becomes a nuisance, we act on that. He doesn't drive around and look for tall grass or code violations. He's spending too much of his time chasing the ones that we're getting information from. And I think a lot of it comes down to collaboration between jurisdictions. One of the first things I said I would do as a county commissioner is I've been a big proponent and gone for many years to the Dayton Development Coalition fly-in in Washington, D.C. And the Chamber of Commerce has now started a drive-in to Columbus every year. I want to bring the other 26 jurisdictions to Montgomery County every year to meet with our local county government. Because we have to start with the local collaborations again. There was an article in the newspaper about Hare Arena, and that Harrison Township and Trotwood didn't know what they were going to do. They should have had a plan in place and been talking amongst themselves what they could be doing with that facility. And to me, that's collaboration. That comes from leadership, and I think that needs to start at the county level to get the local jurisdictions in, to get them in one room talking, because when you get in a room and talk, Republican, Democrat goes out the door. We're all neighbors. We all work together. I said at a forum the other night, I work with a Democrat every single day, my wife. And we don't always agree on everything, but when we sit down and we have a conversation, I realize I was wrong and she was right, and we can move on. But when it comes to those nuisance properties, we have a uniform code, and we've been able to implement some steps to get those taken care of and abated. But it comes down to working with our other local jurisdictions, and I think that's a start that we need to have.
Let me make a couple of comments on this. Again, this is kind of outside my lane to some extent. So certainly I live in the city of Dayton, so I'm aware of some of the problems we've had with blight and neglect of properties and the impact that that's had on the community, the impact that it's had on property values. I'm also aware of some of the inconsistencies about different jurisdictions and how they enforce things like mowing of grass. If you live in Trotwood, they have an inspector out there that has a ruler that goes around. Once it gets 8 inches, man, you get cited. And I know they're pretty strict about it out in Trotwood. But I do know this, that because when these things get done, they get certified, the assessment gets certified to our office and put on their tax bill. The city is mowing about 6,000 lots a month. 6,000 lots a month that they are mowing because they're neglected or abandoned or vacant. And those charges get put back on folks' the property owner's tax bill as a result of that. So I know they are making some effort to deal with those issues, maybe not fully. So I would say this: they have an incredible app now called Dayton Delivers, and this is again, I don't have my phone. Doris, you have it on your phone, right? This is an app where you can take a picture, or if you see a violation like that, you can take a picture of it and notify the city. And my understanding is they are very responsive to those things. So that would be something I would advise you to do.
I'm going to break to what we're doing for just a moment. Teresa, I understand you have to leave, but the next question I'm going to throw in your lap. How important is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to the success of the region? How do we ensure we keep the key missions here?
It is hugely important. It is the largest single-site employer in the state. It's one of the, if not the largest Air Force bases in the world. It is a critical driver to our economy, and it is the job of the representative whose district it sits in to protect it. but not alone. Everything that's been done at Wright Pat has been a collaboration, and that includes the rest of the delegation, both on the Senate and the House side, as well as the state and local, as well as public and private. It needs to be protected. It's crucial to our national security. My issue is that it can't be either or. And I believe the frontline episode is everything I've been talking about on campaign trail. When you ignore the rest of your district, this is what happens. So I want to see a both-and approach. If we don't have a strong, vibrant community, Wright Pat and our other major employers are not going to be able to attract the talent that they need. And so that's why it's important to me. And there's a lot of talk about Dayton, Huber Heights, Beaver Creek. We're all one region. Dayton's the heart of it. And just like the human body, if your heart fails, the extremities are going to go at some point too. Maybe first, maybe last. So we've got to start thinking collaboratively. This region is our home. And we're all in this together. And we need to protect the base, absolutely. But I will say this. I think there's a lot of fear-mongering every time the word BRAC comes up. Anytime we've had a BRAC, Wright Pat has grown. And that happened in the last one. Some installations grow, but we are very target-rich, and people are going to try to strip assets from us. And it is the job of the representative and the coalition to protect those and keep them here.
If I may.
Okay.
Maybe not. So I somewhat agree with Ms. Gasper how important it is. It is the single site largest employer. It's almost like the chicken and the egg, though. I mean, 27,000 employees, direct jobs, over $4 billion economic impact. That's huge. If we lost Wright Patterson, this would be a ghost town. So I don't know if I agree with her that Mike Turner's spending too much time on the base. He has insight there, and he knows what's going on. It's very, very competitive. She mentioned that we were a winner last BRAC in 2005. I will tell you this, we did win 1,200 jobs. San Antonio won 12,000 jobs. We can do much better, and we have to have people on board, like Mike Turner, knowing what's going on. He helped us, Jim Butler and I, just recently with the reciprocity bill that will help us be at the lead for the military families. You know, when it comes down to missions, it's about how we support that mission, first and foremost. But after that, when the playing field is equal, we look at things like how we take care of the families, how we take care of the veterans, how we educate our families, all those other things. And those are the kind of things that for the first time the state are weighing in. All of our colleagues are weighing in. And this is very, very important. So my message to Mike Turner is keep doing that. Keep on top of that. I do recall I saw him in 2005 BRAC call out Hillary Clinton because we were fighting for the same thing. And he was very junior then, and I respected him for that. He knew what we had here, what we could do for the war fighters, and I continue to support him. And for the first time, the state of Ohio is going to weigh in and do what we can do to make sure not only Wright Patterson, but all the military installations and NASA Glenn get what they can get so that they can put their best foot forward so that we can not only keep those missions, but we can gain missions.
Teresa, I know you need to leave. Do you want to do a wrap-up, a 1-minute wrap-up? At the end, I'll ask all the rest of you, but she needs...
What time is it?
Yeah, you've got 1 minute.
It's 8 o'clock.
1 minute, all right.
I just want to say that I love this community, all of it, and I will fight very hard for it. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'd like to comment one more thing on Wright Pat. It is an enduring base. It's never going to close unless somebody blows it up. So I think we need to get past this fear-mongering. And in 2005, the majority of Wright Patterson wasn't even in Mike Turner's district. It was the Air Force Base. So before we give him too much credit, let's deal with some facts here. That all being said, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm sorry, I do need to scoot out here a little bit, but I would appreciate your vote in November. I think it's time for new leadership. In 16 years, Mike Turner has never held an in-person town hall meeting. There's only one bill that we're aware of that has been passed, and that was 2005, that he started and came out. He's not present unless it's for photo ops and fundraisers. And I think this community deserves a representative that will listen to them, that will fight for them, and that's what I'm prepared to do. And I thank you so much for your time, and I'm so sorry I have to leave, but I need to go introduce the next governor of the state of Ohio, Rich Cordray, the rally. Thanks.
Okay, getting back on some of our inspections. Should roofers in the state of Ohio be licensed or certified? What do you all think? Roofers. Should roofers in the state of Ohio be licensed or certified?
Roofers in the state of Ohio, when you add professional to them, being licensed, there are training programs for them, and they continue to work. There should be a minimum standard for roofing and being able to roof, and that is covered through the Ohio Building Code, and I believe we should continue to do that.
You know, it is incumbent on the state of Ohio to make sure that people, the residents, have the protection of contractors that are necessary. And so I go back to how something as valuable as our homes, we need to make sure that there are minimum standards, as you said, for all the roofers so that they do work in accordance with the proper standards that we have now. So there should be some kind of certification associated with roofers for residential. I agree with that. Can I say something else?
Sure.
Let me make it very clear, Teresa's left, but no one here or anywhere has said Wright-Patterson may close. She's right about that, but I don't want that to be misunderstood. We all know Wright-Patterson's one of the strong bases. It's a matter if we'll gain missions or we'll lose missions. As a matter of fact, just right now, in the next couple months, they're deciding on where they're going to manage the F-35 program from. It's either Utah or it's here. And those little things that we're trying to do, like reciprocity, may help put it over the edge. So that's a big win if we get that. So just wanted to make that clear. No one's trying to put the fear of God in anyone that Wright-Patterson will close. It will not close.
San Antonio probably thought the same thing.
Yes.
You have something to say
But
about
then they all closed, all three. Talking about certification, you all feel that yearly or yearly, it needs to be recertified? Or once you get a certification, is it good for life?
So it depends on, it would depend. So for...
That sounds like a lawyer.
Yeah, I know. Totally.
That's the first thing they teach you.
That's right. Just say that. You wake up, that's what you say. Taking a nap. But no, if you have something that requires you to stay on the cutting edge of a certain profession, there's things that are constantly changing. So for example, physicians are recertified every 10 years, and I think that's appropriate. My wife's a physician. She doesn't, of course, nobody likes it because you have to work and study and then take another test. But a lot of stuff happens in medicine over a 10-year period, and then that's appropriate. So it depends on what the profession is, how often you would need to get recertified. So.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with Representative Butler. I think depending on what the service is, what the expertise is, depends on the duration of how long it takes before you have to renew it.
Yeah, totally makes sense. If realtors have to recertify every 3 years, certainly doctors should be recertified every 10 years at least, as do other professions. But I'm not sure that we should try to regulate every single profession out there, whether it's roofers or bricklayers, or when does it stop? At what time and step does it stop? We can't regulate everybody. We can't overwhelm everybody with some kind of registration form. That does not lead to good results either. That results in total overregulation, a lot of bureaucracy, and have you dealt with that bureaucracy? And that's a rhetorical question to the public here, because pretty much if you're an investor, you've dealt with a lot of bureaucracy. And you know that it's not pretty for the most part, at least in jurisdictions like Montgomery County. So let's make it a little bit easier and friendlier and be very strategic about what we regulate and leave everything else to the market.
As an educator who teaches others how to be certified in their profession, I agree with certification. And it does not have to have standardized timelines. So for instance, I am a certified rehabilitation counselor. I am recertified every 5 years. It does not necessarily mean that it is a test every single time. There is continued education credits. Myself, I have 100 for one certification and 35 for the other. And while I do that, and it does add additional stress, I'm not going to say that it doesn't, but I know that my profession has meaning and has voice. And I know that when people receive services from me, there are expectations on their behalf. So when you receive a report that you were embarrassed by for the inspection, there are certification levels and standards and understandings that should be included, right? You have an expectation of that profession, and that can continue. So you don't have to necessarily be tested every 10 years or 5 years or 3 years, depending. But to maintain that professionalism and understand what is coming and what is cutting edge and where the environment is going, it is important to have that continued education and be involved in the profession.
So look, the bottom line is that we need to, at the state, take care of the safety and well-being of our citizens. And the way we have it established is we have a GC, a general contractor, who has to get licensed and knows some of the basics. So like you said, everybody, a bricklayer needs to be licensed. But there are some skill sets that, like electricians and others, that require more skills than a GC can accommodate. And we need to make sure that we're not putting our residents in harm's way. So it's a subjective call, but we need to stay on top of it.
Well, the issue that we're not talking about, and that's kind of the underlying issue when you're talking about roofers or contractors in general, how many people are having trouble just to get a contractor to show up?
Everybody.
Well, here's the issue that we're dealing with. I coach high school football. And I know the kids at Miamisburg, when they go see their counselor, the counselor asks them, where are you going to college? Well, I don't want to go to college. Here's your pass back to class. We just failed the kid. We're not pushing kids into the skilled trades because the schools aren't getting their funding unless they go to a 4-year school. We need to start getting back to the stage where if a child doesn't want to go to college, not every child is ready to go to college. You can make a really good living in the skilled trades. And the problem that we see with a lot of the contractors right now is they're just trying to find somebody that has a pulse that can help them get the job done. Because we don't have an unemployment problem, we have an underemployment problem. And if we don't start getting these kids pushed towards a career, education is important, and ongoing education is important. But we're failing these kids by turning them loose out into society without any direction, any place they can go. Every skilled trade in Montgomery County is dying for people. Most every company right now, I own a staffing company. I could put 2,000 people to work tomorrow. And all they have to do is show up to work every day. So we have to have a paradigm shift in how we're thinking. Because I know for my kids, I'm thinking, you're going to 4-year school. Well, if my kid that's a senior comes to me next May when he graduates and say, you know, Dad, I don't think I want to go to college. That's going to hurt. But I need to help make him successful. And whether that's a drywaller, electrician, a plumber, a bricklayer, a roofer, they can make they can support a family doing that. But we have to give them the path to do that.
Thank you.
I could not agree more. This is one of the things that I am really pushing for in juvenile court. A lot of the kids that we see that are delinquent are not engaged in school. They're not flourishing in school because that's not their thing. Maybe they're good with their hands, maybe they have an engineer's mind, maybe they're creative. We need to stop putting all the prestige on going to college. Is it really smart to spend $200,000 on a communications degree? Or is it better to be a plumber and make $100,000 right after you're done being trained? We send the wrong message to our children. Thank you.
You know, I think we get that, and thank you for that intro. House Bill 451 is my bill, and it's exposing 16 and 17-year-old kids to construction. Many times they don't get into construction because they don't know what construction is. And if we could loosen the laws in conformance with the federal laws, the Department of Commerce, so that these kids can work there in the summer and long breaks, they can make a little bit more than they can flipping burgers, they can learn how to use hand tools in a very safe environment, then they might decide on their own, I don't need to go to college and get a $30,000 debt. I can go into a skill craft and construction, and like you folks said, make a very, very good living. We need more of those. So we're trying to figure out ways, including putting short-term certificates in the two-year institutions so that the kids have other alternatives and it's not one size fit all.
Bill number what?
451.
Yeah,
551, I'm sorry.
And that's a really good bill. I strongly support it. Representative Prowse has done a great job on that. And I think getting exposure is really important. Making sure that there's not a stigma for not going to a four-year college. I mean, that's something that we've kind of grown up with over the past few decades. But the other problem we have is our K-12 schools are all incentivized so that we pass a test. That's what they're graded on. We just had the grades come out. And it's important that kids make progress, as much progress as they possibly can. But why don't we think about the purpose of education? We want schools to prepare our students for success. We want them to and then go out and actually be successful. We don't even measure that. They measure that for career tech schools, ironically, and it works wonderfully. So they, pursuant to federal law, they're measured after you go out of a career tech school, so, for high school, if you go out and get a well-paying job. So that's measured, and then their certification depends on it, and they're incentivized to do it. They do very well, but not enough people are going to career tech schools. All the students at K-12 are all their teachers, guidance counselors, everybody are incentivized from the state by just passing a test. And so we need to, and I'm working on legislation to do that, to change the way that we measure K-12 schools to, as a large component, what happens 6 months and 12 months after you leave K-12. And you should get equal credit for a four-year school, an apprenticeship, a two-year school, enlisting in the military, or just going out and getting a well-paying job like a lot of my friends did when they graduated high school in Washington Courthouse. So and that actually it's working. That type of approach is working. I think that those conversations, because the state superintendent just came out with a 5-year strategic plan, and it included that, including measuring 1 year after kids leave K-12, what's happening with them. You need to look at it and then incentivize it financially.
I'd like to talk about our career tech really quick. We have CTC and we have Mad River. And I will tell you that there are more students than there are spots. And they are not able to get into those programs. Additionally, we are underutilizing our apprenticeship programs and as a route to graduation. We can have more people in construction. Guidance counselors in schools are actively talking to students about their options because their path is what is best for that student. It's teaching the whole student and continuing to teach the whole student and understanding and recognizing that the whole student and the person sitting across from them not necessarily needs to go to college or wants to go to college immediately after high school. Plenty of us have taken time to decide what we do in our professional career. When we can have the opportunity to have more career tech and more training programs, for instance, Mad River has a career tech training program that's actually working inside of Riverside, rehabbing 2 houses that had been foreclosed on and vacant properties. Those students are out in the community having experience. So when we can expand and have more opportunities for our students to move forward, that will benefit all of us.
I'd like to shift gears for just a moment. What are your feelings, on any of you, for Airbnb in the neighborhoods? A lot of the cities have rules and laws against Airbnb. It's temporary housing, and other cities embrace the idea. Has anybody got negative feelings about Airbnb in Dayton or our area?
I have positive feelings.
Okay.
Even though I personally would not go that route with my properties, but I think it's a private right of an investor and a homeowner to be able to sublease essentially their houses to whoever they want. That's really what America is about. It's a free country. I understand that some large cities typically are trying to regulate it, but that's because of lobbyists from the hotel industry. It's the same type of lobbyists which forbid Uber and Lyft from doing their ride sharing in different cities because of the Taxi Owners Association. And it's typically the very same large city that tries to regulate those businesses out of existence. Folks, as we know as investors, you cannot stand in a way of progress. You cannot stand in a way of innovation. You can try to stop it for a while, but eventually innovation will prevail, and at least in this country. And so that's why the wisest thing to do, of course, is to make sure to get all the stakeholders together, try to find an equitable solution which tries to respect everyone's right to a certain degree. But you can't try to regulate it out of existence and just prohibit it and tell homeowners that no, you're not allowed to do something like this. Especially when the federal tax code specifically allows you to do something like that, so.
I think what we're missing here too is local government input. I mean, I agree that from the state perspective, but local government is a big deal here, and their authority to rule, unless it's counter to law, it usurps everything else there. So local government, I'd like to have a mayor here or someone to talk a little bit about that, but I think we need to, a mayor? Doug, you want to talk about that?
Well, they're missing the hospitality tax. They're not getting the hospitality
Right, but there's no
tax.
one here to speak about the counter part of that, and I don't know that. Doug?
The only place that we would run into that is the neighborhood association. If a neighborhood association gets together and creates certain standards for their own neighborhood, but we go by, in the township, we're governed by the Ohio Revised Code. So as long as it fits within the Ohio Revised Code, that's what our rule of thumb is. And so, like as Dill had said, private property, somebody can do with it what they want, just as long as it fits within what the Ohio Revised Code says. So in Miami Township, I couldn't even tell if we have any Airbnbs down there. Not sure. It hasn't been an issue that we've dealt with.
Got a question for each one of you. How do each of you, or where, I should say, do each of you stand on state issue 1?
No.
As a judicial candidate, I am prevented from commenting on any case or controversy. Thank you.
An amendment to our Constitution is a significant happening in the state of Ohio. We need to be very aware of what that means. We also need to make sure that people are not being penalized unequally and that we have access. And so moving forward, knowing that we need to make sure that people are working together and understanding how impactful this is.
From everything that I've read so far, leads me in the direction of no, but I'm certainly open to more research and to gain some more insight on the issue.
I'm a strong no on this. I think it's dangerous. I think it's a bad precedent. I think it makes the state of Ohio attractive for the type of people that we don't want. And back to what you said, I don't think that our Constitution is set up for laws. That's why we have the Ohio Revised Code. This is a law. We can get rid of that. I think this is bad on a number of fronts, and I don't think this is something we need in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm completely against it. It is very dangerous. Maybe there's a good intent there, but in terms of trying to get people who are addicted treatment instead of having them go through the criminal justice system. And that's fine, but this is not the way to do it, because what's going to happen is you could have enough fentanyl to kill 10,000 people in your pocket, and you won't even be able to be sent to jail, much less prison. That's what issue 1 will do. So, and not to say that the person that has that much drugs on them is automatically a drug dealer, but drug dealers would have loved if issue 1 were to pass in Ohio. They already are pathetically weak laws when it comes to drug trafficking, which we absolutely need to change. But if we did this, there would be so many ways to make sure that the drug traffickers who aren't caught drug trafficking but actually have a lot of drugs on them, that right now they just get a slap on the wrist, and this way they won't get anything at all. Because it's only a misdemeanor, and then only after 3 times then can you even potentially face jail time and never prison, because it's no matter what, no matter how many times you're arrested, it's always a misdemeanor. So that, combined with 25% lower penalties for almost every crime there is, including drug trafficking, is an absolutely horrible idea. Again, the intense rate, but if you're going to take away the leverage that judges have in drug treatment courts and so forth in order to get people who are addicted to treatment, which currently exists with our felonies, then you have to have an alternative. You have to have a way to get somebody who's been in your courtroom 7 times and who's going to kill themselves because they're so addicted to drugs help. Just like somebody who's suicidal, and that would be an involuntary commitment. That's not. We don't have that, and if you take away this, there'll be nothing, and lots of poor people who are addicted will be hurt or die.
Well, you've had a lot to say on that subject. Of course, this is not within my, I'm outside of my Kool-Aid here, but, so let me say this about it. First of all, we legislate through constitutional amendments in Ohio all the time. I mean, that's kind of a frequent thing we do, isn't it? Unfortunately. But let me say this. We'll start early voting in a few weeks. October 10th is when early voting begins, and so a lot of people, will be voting early on different subjects. My wife and I, did I point out my wife? My wife and I always vote on election day. So to be honest with you, she and I have not discussed this issue yet. And we always do. We'll discuss the different issues that are on the ballot and talk about how we are going to support or not support those. So, having said that, we have not had that discussion, and I am not taking a position on it tonight.
You do want to go home, don't you?
You want to go home?
Okay, while we're on drugs,
You said we?
what is your plan to combat the opioid crisis that is happening in our state?
As a rehabilitation counselor and mental health counselor, what we know, we all know that we have a significant opioid crisis here. Raise your hands, how many people have been affected? I've been affected. Many of us have been affected. We know that this has no demographic associated with it. We have people who are very highly educated. We have people who haven't graduated high school, who are very young. We have all levels of socioeconomic status. And this does not discriminate. Moving forward, we need to be evidence-based. We know that working with mental health treatment and treatment programs and working with individuals works. We know that. That's science-based. We cannot jail away an entire generation with opioids who have been convicted. We need to work together, because when you have a criminal offense against you, how difficult is it to get a job?
Impossible.
It's incredibly impossible. Whether that be moving forward, that's what we need to remember. We need to remember that this does not discriminate, whether it's my family or your family. So that's what we need to do. We need to work together.
All right, so first of all, what we're doing is not working. So in every area, it's not working. The statistics are very strong. We've had very fortunately lower overdose deaths recently in the past about 8 months, but that's actually because of a host of reasons, but mostly because crystal meth is really now the new drug of choice. It's not, opioids are still a problem, especially fentanyl, because everyone's lacing fentanyl with every other type of drug, but we have, pretty soon we'll hear about it all the time, but there is a ton of crystal meth that's now being sold for super cheap, and a lot of people are switching and now are on crystal meth. But either way, our treatment programs that we currently have work less than 10% of the time. And I was just at a roundtable today with almost the entire community, and Senator Portman, who's done a wonderful job on this topic, and everybody agreed with that. Everybody agreed with that the short-term 30-day treatment programs, somebody will go in, and they'll come right out, they'll count the days, and then they'll immediately use again. And of course, then their system might not be used to it, and then they have a higher risk of overdose. So we need to come up with a better treatment program. We need to get people out of prisons and jails who are addicted and into treatment. So I actually will be introducing, as kind of a short preview here, a whole package of different bills, and one of them will be the ability for somebody who is either sentenced in the criminal justice system, who volunteers to go in, or is already in prison or jail, to go into a long-term, up to 3-year inpatient treatment facility, because that's what you need to get better. When you're severely addicted, it's a spectrum, but when you're severely addicted, your brain has changed. It takes 18 to 24 months for it to actually heal. Scientific studies show that. You need to make sure that you don't have drugs around you. You need a safe place with programming, the state of the art. So we'll have that on the treatment side. We need to make sure all of our people who are addicted are getting good treatment. I'm abbreviating. We need to make sure that drug traffickers, who are typically not users, are punished appropriately, because right now I could sell crystal meth or heroin to everybody in this room, and you wouldn't be able to send me to prison under state law. And I got a problem with that, because to me it's just like armed robbery. Because if I did that, I'm probably going to kill somebody. I'm doing it for money. And that's supposed to be a second-degree felony. That would be a second-degree felony, but it's armed robbery. And I don't see the difference for drug traffickers, which are very different than our drug addicts, although sometimes you have addicts that are doing that to feed their habit. But how do we punish addicts who rob banks with a gun? That's a second-degree felony. We should have no difference in how we treat that. And then we need to make sure that we get people who are not a threat to society also out of prison, so that our prisons are overpopulated. And then we also need to, on the prevention side, make sure that people know, and everyone should know, that if you use opiates for more than 5 days, your chances of being addicted, prescription opiates, go way up. I'm surprised our system of education is not taught that. And in fact, we just had it's an improvement, it's still bad, that says you can't, for an acute new prescription, prescribe more than 7 days of an opiate. Well, that's 2 days too many, if you ask me. For a brand new opiate, if you get your wisdom teeth pulled, something like that, shouldn't get 7 days. It should go pursuant to CDC guidelines and be 3. And if you still have pain after that, then you can go get another prescription. The doctor should reevaluate you. So it's a very short, abbreviated version, but we need a comprehensive approach. We need to try something new. Even if we fail, we shouldn't be afraid to try something new, because what we're doing right now is not working.
I've got to ask the question, how do you propose paying for all of that?
Well, very good question. The treatment side is the expensive side, right? I assume that's what you're asking. So, first of all, the direct and indirect costs are astronomical for addiction. So if people start getting better, we'll save a ton of money right there. And ER visits, ongoing costs, public safety costs, you name it, we'll save a lot. But even that's not enough. So what this is, so getting a little more detail, because you're in there for 3 years, and you also need, one of the things when you're addicted is you need to have purpose, you need to have a mission, something to do. There'll be, and this is all voluntary, by the way. To go into the treatment facility is always voluntary. You can still be part of the criminal justice system if you choose. It's an option. But then you can work, and this is the key part, work and make something not made in the United States, right? Because if you, otherwise you're competing with businesses that are paying their workers and everything else. So it has to be something not made in the United States, but then that will be able to help to fund the facility. So the people that are going through treatment will be helping to pay for their own treatment. Some of it, of course, it can't be, there's even a limit on how much it can be, so there's never a profit motive in place. But that helps to satisfy some of the funding over that long period of time. Because once you go through the step process, you go through proper detox, medical detox, you need to do a much better job of that. Then you need some organization. Then you need kind of like the stop program that we have now, kind of a halfway transition period. But then for some that are severely addicted that still need to be in treatment and have that program, have that support around them, then there'll be the opportunity to work and make something not made in the United States, which also brings skills for when you're out. And then when you're out, actually there's another program that provides half the wages and benefits for 18 to 24 months for people who are coming out of the treatment facilities and are actually out of prison, so that you make sure that there's a job, there's housing around it, there's programming, and you also have to be a mentor for somebody who's going through the first three-year inpatient. And then back to your record. If you go through that, your entire record, except for the most violent offenses, would be sealed, so that you can start a new life. You've gone through that, you've been clean for that many number of years. Hopefully we've been able to provide support all along the way. And I don't know if that's going to work. Scientific studies show that if you are off drugs for a longer than a 2-year period of time, your chances of relapse go down 90%. So the few studies that are out there show that it could work, but I think that's the best option that we can try. So we should try it instead of continuing to do what we know doesn't work.
Wow, that's going to be hard to follow. I think this is a problem that everybody has to get involved with. And the solution, there's not one solution. And I'll give you a good example. The Secret Service came to me about 2 years ago, and they told me that counterfeiting is a huge problem in the state of Ohio because we don't have it in code. We don't have the word counterfeiting in our state law. So that means our state law officials and prosecutors can't prosecute, and the feds can't keep up with all the counterfeiting. And then they told me that 85% of their cases, counterfeiting cases, are tied to illicit drug trading. So here's a situation where, by inserting the word counterfeiting, describing it, and giving our law enforcement and prosecuting attorneys the authority to prosecute and put the bad guys behind bars, we are also going to take a dent out of the opiate crisis, because that's and if it's not opiate, it's whatever drug of the month is, they're funding it by these counterfeits, both currency and cards. So if we can take a dent out of that, then we're going to take a dent out of the drug use, and the cost the state a cent. It just is a change in our codes.
We need to get into the elementary schools and the middle schools and start teaching these kids the dangers of not just opioids, but all drugs. The Just Say No campaign was great back in the 80s and 90s. But a lot of these kids don't know what they're getting, because they're lacing this stuff in marijuana, cigarettes, and all those other types that kids will go experiment with it, and now you're hooked. So that's a piece that, I'm not going to reiterate what they said. I agree with what they said on the parts for the dealers and the addicts. But education's the other piece of this. It's going to dam up the problem, so it's not an ongoing thing in the future. We've got to stop getting kids involved in drugs, and we have to make them aware of what the dangers are.
I'll just add one thing. As a working attorney, I obviously see a lot of the opioid crisis. The people that I've seen successfully kick the habit have done so for their children. The opioid crisis has a huge impact on our foster care community, on children not having parents in their lives. I cannot even begin to describe what an impact it has had. So I just want to let you know that the costs to society truly are staggering, and anything we can do to stem it will be good. Thank you.
While we're talking, I've got to watch how I phrase this, do you think that the big pharmaceuticals should help pay for some of the rehab costs, since their drugs sort of caused the problem and they pushed the drugs? Or did I editorialize there? Do you think that the big pharmacies should help pay for this problem.
Sure. Absolutely. As far as I know, there are lawsuits and companies that pursue should be held liable, should be held responsible. And yeah, so I think that's the right thing to do. But like I said, there are it's being litigated right now, and Ohio Attorney General, among others, have as well as other states have sued some of those pharmaceuticals. So I'm sure there will be, judges will make the right decisions shortly. We'll go from there.
You know, I think we all agree that these companies put profit over the well-being of our citizens, and to the greatest extent possible, that the attorney generals throughout the country can prosecute them. I think that I'm very supportive of that, and we should.
Okay, let's switch topics again. What is your thoughts about how to revitalize the Dayton boarded up empty houses, abandoned houses?
No. Well, you know, the housing crisis in Dayton and in Montgomery County has been a blow to the entire community. Let's start there. You know, we in between 2011, 2014, we saw property values in this county drop 12%. We lost $3.5 billion. But you go in certain neighborhoods, particularly in neighborhoods in Dayton, or not just Dayton, you can go into Trotwood, you can go to Harrison Township, you can go to parts of Riverside, Jefferson Township. You know, we had neighborhoods that lost 30-40% of their property value as a result of the housing crisis. There's been mentioned the foreclosure crisis earlier. There are a lot of factors that are at play that will continue to plague the housing community in Montgomery County and similar counties for years to come. You know, a loss of population is a big part of it. When you've got, when you had a city that at one time was home for 250,000 people is now home to 140,000 people. You know, there's 100,000, there is housing there for 100,000 people that is no longer needed and is vacant. And so some of it has become abandoned and blighted and functionally obsolescent and in disrepair. And so, you know, as long as that's there, that becomes a factor. Again, that's a factor certainly in Dayton, but not just a factor in Dayton. It's a factor in every community in this county, maybe not to the extent in Dayton, but it's a factor in every community in this county. We have a lot of homes in Montgomery County that have an aging housing stock. I mean, even in Oakwood, you have some aging housing stock properties that is impacting the values of the surrounding properties. In Dayton in particular, about 90% of the homes in Dayton were built prior to 1960. They're 50 years, approaching 60 years of age. And if they have not been updated or not been upgraded, they become hard to market. And so that's what we're seeing, and that's what's causing some of the housing, the values that we're having, the problems in dropping in values. All of that is a factor. So when you say, well, how do you fix that? And I don't think there is any easy fix. I think what places like Dayton and Trotwood and West Carrollton, communities all around the county that are working to address those blighted structures by some of them have been raised. Quite frankly, some of them are in a condition where they have to be raised. They're no longer, they can't be saved. And by removing them from the landscape is an improvement both to the health and well-being of the community and to and it helps the value of the surrounding properties, because those things are dragging down the rest of the community. So projects like we've seen in Dayton, around the Roosevelt neighborhood, where the school district invested in the Dayton Academy there in Roosevelt, the new school, right? Adil, help me out here, but this new school, and then we used NIP money to leverage to take down 80 structures and build back 40 structures with a double lot. And you've got These homes that were built after World War II that are 800, 900 square feet with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath up, it's hard to market those homes. It's probably hard to rent those homes. There's just not a market for them. And so being able to redo that housing stock and with a bigger lot will make that more marketable and will help to build that, build those values. But you know, those are long-term solutions. Those aren't solutions that happen overnight. I'm sitting here listening to Representative Butler talk about the opioid crisis. You know, the solutions that he's talking about. Those things aren't going to happen overnight. Those are long-term things. And it's the same way with what we're facing here in the housing crisis. That's not going to be correct overnight. So, you know, but there's a lot, but by improving some of the housing stock and removing some of the housing stock, I think is one of the things that we have to do.
You look at who's moving into downtown Dayton, it's the young professionals, it's the empty nesters.
That's right.
Who are we missing? The parents and kids. We got to get Dayton Public Schools back on track and make it an attractive place for people to raise families. Because the young professionals are going to start having kids, and where are they going to go? To the suburbs, where the schools are good. That's a key component to attract people to those neighborhoods, to revitalize those neighborhoods. And I think we need to work with the communities around the country that have had schools in the state that Dayton Public Schools in, bring those best practices here so that we can make those attractive once again. Because until we get families moving back into Dayton, we're not going to address the overall issue.
I want to answer your question because, in fact, my answer would look back at some of the other questions that you've had. I have somewhat of a unique perspective as both an investor and someone very much involved in education here locally. And of course, it's no accident that every answer goes back to the city of Dayton, because at the end of the day, even though I'm running from Montgomery County, but really everybody knows this area thanks to Dayton. Everybody refers to this area as the Dayton area. So what happens in Dayton is very important, and that would have a spillover effect on the whole county. The answer, really, the direct answer is not the government. Government will not be able to do much. They have proven that in the past decade. They've missed so many opportunities. I will give you an example. The city of Dayton has a program called Lot Links. All of you investors know about it very well. So do I. We know that program had a lot of potential. It took them forever to finally get it to a stage now when it's functioning more or less up to some par. Now at least it takes only a year to get that property. It used to take 3 years. By the time you got your property on which you bid, on which you paid your deposit, your house came to you totally demolished. All your ARV models that you put into your spreadsheets were out of the window because that housing stock has completely deteriorated. But government doesn't understand. They don't know. They don't care, really. They processed only something like 36 houses in lot links in 2016. That's it. Out of their stock of hundreds and hundreds of houses that has accumulated. Now, Montgomery County is no better. Montgomery County has the land bank. That's a statewide initiative. Every county, has that. They also have a lot of stock, a lot of housing stock in their possession. And it also takes them 18 months or so right now. And now the problem with programs like that, with lot links, for example, is something you were alluding to before. As soon as an investor gets it, as soon as an investor gets his lot links in his or her possession, the next day, suddenly the inspector shows up and writes out a bunch of citations. And we investors wonder, well, where were you, gentlemen, all these years? How come you didn't write up any citations? But as soon as an investor got it and is just gearing up to try to rehabilitate that space, suddenly out of nowhere, this great inspector shows up and punishes you for being an entrepreneur, for trying to rehabilitate this housing stock. Any one of you who has dealt with rehab rehabbing in this area has dealt with that. And I certainly know my fair share of investors. I know investors who've done dozens and dozens of such deals in the city of Dayton and have been burned by those very government inspectors. So forgive me if I'm a little bit skeptical, but also that loops back to the fact of why I am running for my position, because I want to make government much more accountable, transparent, and much better. My business experience helps with that, very diverse business experience. I know what needs to be fixed. I know how to fix it. And I'll be able to do it even if it's only in the recorder's office. But let's at least start there. But of course, there are many great people here who are offering a lot of solutions, so I'm sure if all of us follow up on all these promises, we'll be able to make Montgomery County, say Dayton, and other nearby areas much, much better.
Okay, I think I'm going to throw it back to you for a moment.
Okay.
What is the due process, or maybe possibly your office, what is the due process before a mowing charge is recorded?
Okay, so with any city that ends up mowing the grass on the property, they will certify that assessment. I think what they do initially is they contact the property owner or hang, and sometimes I've seen in Dayton, they'll hang a citation on the property that they have mowed or boarded up or whatever they've had to remove trash, whatever type of nuisance assessment they've had to do. They'll put that charge on. They may contact the property owner and ask them to pay it, but if they don't pay it, they certify those assessments to the county auditor, and those are placed on the tax bills and to be collected the same as any other tax. Those assessments just get certified to us once a year. So, there could be some period of time before that assessment is actually, the mowing's done before that assessment is actually made and placed on the property. Does that answer the question, I think? But can I say one other thing? Bill mentioned this, part of, one of the things that delays some of the issues with property issues, delinquent properties, people say, why don't you go foreclose on these properties? Why don't you take those properties away from those people? They're not paying their taxes. We do have there is issues of due process. And we are a country that follows due process, and there are things that we have to do to protect the rights of property owners. Because one of the things we hold most dear in this country, along with the right to vote, is the right to own property. And to deny someone that right, you do have steps and hoops that you have to go through, and they're complicated and they're difficult, but that's the reason they're there, is to protect the rights of property owners. And it does take time to work yourself through those hoops.
Okay, thank you. I know I've got some questions here that I have not addressed. I'm sorry, I'm told we're sort of getting close to the end of our time. I would like to give you all an opportunity for a 1-minute rundown of what you want us to take from this about you as your candidacy.
You again.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity and the opportunity to be with you tonight. I appreciate everyone taking their time. I'm honored to serve as county auditor. I've been honored to serve. It's a wonderful opportunity to work with people in the community. I really feel like we do things in the auditor's office that matter. And doing things that matter, whether it be to the individual or to the community as a whole, is important to me. It's rewarding to me. It's challenging. Some of the things we've talked about here tonight are serious challenges, and I think they require people who are serious about approaching those challenges and wanting and seeking solutions to them, practical, real solutions to them. And that's what I tried to do during my tenure as county auditor, and what I hope to do in the future. I appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us. I want to say first that Dan Acton deserves a lot of credit for what he does for you on a daily basis in Columbus. I mean, he does stay in very close contact with all of us and fights for you in Columbus on a lot of different issues. And we meet with him on a regular basis. He works very hard. So I wanted to first say that. And it's a tough fight. There's a lot of special interests out there. And special interests are really who, at least in Columbus, I mean, they have a lot of power. So you need to have a voice there. And sometimes it transcends even the special interests when you get into the media. And so just a real quick story, I was able to put in the budget something where if there's a property tax appeal that the school board appeals to the appellate court, the Board of Tax Appeals after the Board of Revisions or the Common Pleas Court, and then they lose, they lost first and then they lose again, and then they would have to pay your attorney's fees, because a lot of times they'll try to squeeze you, maybe not intentionally, only bad actors would do that, but you feel squeezed because it's not worth the money to fight it versus what you might save in taxes. So we put that in the budget, it passed over in the Senate, all of a sudden there are editorials and the state papers saying, oh my gosh, what's Representative Butler trying to do? Whatever, and then it got stripped out in the Senate. So you got to constantly fight for those things.
What's wrong with that, Senate?
Well, they're great, but sometimes they just don't see the light. So we'll work on them. But anyway, I just want to thank everybody for listening to us. Thank all the candidates for being here tonight, and appreciate your support.
Thank you.
I'd like to call Dan out too, and thank you for what you do. And yeah, you're a hero, right? Yeah, he didn't know he was going to get these call outs.
He's our hero.
So, and I want to thank the association. You guys do a great job, and you're part of what makes this area as good as it is to live, work, and pray and play. So I'd just like to, a couple things. I'd like to say it's good to see everyone up here. If we didn't know each other, we probably wouldn't know if we were D's or R's, and we talk a lot about working together, and I think we do a pretty good job of doing that at the State House, but we got to keep talking. We got to get along, because I like to tell the story of my wife and I don't agree half the time. That's my wife. She loves me, and she doesn't agree with me, or I don't agree with her. But the fact is, we know how to communicate and get past it. That's what we have to do. And so, I think we do that. We have to be visible and out there, and if we're not, then we need to be replaced. And the last thing I want to say is, it is incumbent on us to make sure that we train the next generation. We can't take that too lightly. I've got two young men over there that go to school at Wright State, and they're helping me. And I can see them sitting down here in the very near future. And it's incumbent on me to make sure, again, this isn't my seat. I don't own my State House seat. I'm just borrowing it for my 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, hopefully another 2 years. Those guys are our future. And the rest of the young folks out there, we've got to make a concerted effort to get the young people, recruit them, and help them to do the right job for the right reason. So I want to say thank you and good night to everyone. And I will tell you this, my wife's waiting for me, and we have an RV, we rent it. We're going to go down to Auburn, and we're going to tailgate and relax for this weekend. So I'm going to be out of here very shortly. Thank you.
Well, I certainly want to encourage you all to vote for me in this election, because I'm all about solutions. I'm all about fixing something that has been broken. I'm all about upgrading and improving and really modernizing and bringing it into the 21st century, because we need it. I have all the experience that's necessary for this position and for this office. I know what I'm doing, and I'm running for the right reasons. Where I come from, we did not have property rights. So it's really humbling for me to be able to run essentially for this chief real estate officer type of position in this county, in a country where property rights are protected, safeguarded, and respected, and very much valued. I certainly enjoy those rights myself as an investor and as a homeowner, and I promise to be a very good custodian of that. So I have some of my yard signs over there, and I certainly encourage you all to approach me, but other than that, you certainly get to see me at these meetings that I try to attend whenever I can as both a member and, of course, investor. After all, when I'm among you guys, I feel at home. I always like to build some more business relationships, and I'm not soliciting any business, but I'm nevertheless saying that I'm always open to more business and more deals, so do approach me for that as well. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for offering this opportunity to meet with each one of you. And I got here a little early and I had a chance to say hi and introduce myself. And I want you to know that I'm running because what I haven't seen is honest, accountable leadership. And I don't see that happening. And I am going to be the person that has integrity, that continues to work for our future and our children, for continued business and education and healthcare, affordable healthcare that matters. And so what I need you to do is join me with going to the voting booth and voting. And voting for the people that take the future into account, so that we can engage, not special interests, but just like this, on those one-on-one conversations we had beforehand, and advocate in Columbus and deliver here at home. And I want you to know that I'm accessible and I can do that with you. So please go out and vote. Brian, Rebecca Taylor for Ohio House. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for having us. It's been a lovely evening. I want everybody to remember, vote Helen Wallace for Montgomery County Juvenile Court Judge. I am also doing this for the right reasons. I have a passion and energy for children that I can't wait to show you all. I'm going to implement educational tutoring programs. I'm going to try and start a school, a pilot school out of juvenile court. I'm going to do apprenticeships through the court. I'm going to get a lot done and give our children hope. It's a pretty bleak situation out there for some of our kids, but we can make a difference. I didn't get a chance to tell you about my personal life. I have 2 children, a son who's 15 and a daughter who's nearly 13. My husband and I are going to celebrate our 20th anniversary this December. I was going to say that if I am elected, I will be the first female to ever sit in juvenile court as judge. I don't want you to vote for me because of that. I want you to vote for me because of my passion and my experience and my knowledge of the law and my reputation and my ability to work collaboratively with other people in the community and in the court. So thank you very much. My mouth is a bit dry, but I really enjoyed tonight. And although I cannot comment on certain things, I have heard everything that's said tonight, and I listened. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been a business owner in Dayton now for a little over 25 years, and I told you our story a little bit earlier, and I don't have all the answers. But what I do have is I have a network of people that we can bring to the table and collaborate together to work on solutions to fix the problems. None of the problems that we have in this county we're going to solve the next year. They're long-term problems. They take a strategic plan, they take collaboration, they take sitting down with other people and working together to solve problems. And that's what we've done with Barry staff over the last 38 years. It's what I've done as a Miami Township trustee, and that's what I look forward to with your help in November to bring Montgomery County Commission. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me here. Sorry again that Representative Montani couldn't make it, and we appreciate what all you do for the day.
Okay, on behalf of Greater Dayton Area, I do want to thank you guys first before we let you go. Sean has a few things he wants to say.
Thank you, folks. I certainly, some of the folks I've met here for the first time, and some I know you for a long time. I've been a member of this organization for 6 years, and the legislative chair for this. The only thing I can tell you is we try to be as proactive as possible when housing issues come up. If you come across something that you need some advice or something, please reach out to us. Dan is always available. And one more thing, I know everybody knows that the big debate went on in town. That's the reason our candidates' numbers are less.
I thought this was it.
But those people that consider us worthy of their time are here. So I just want to appreciate you being here for us, even though there's a big picture up there. But we're all local. we have local issues. So let's do that, and thanks again very much, and have a nice evening.
Thank you all for being
Thank
here.
you.
Once you guys